Hey, I'm Andrew Nichols, a master primal health coach and Insulin IQ certified, and I help men over 30 build sustainable habits to help them reverse insulin resistance. So, in this video, I'm going to show you how to build better habits in 4 simple steps and also how to invert them to be able to remove bad habits. So, I'm going to approach this by first explaining what a habit loop is and then how you can create good habits and break bad ones using the 4 laws of behavior change as taught by Atomic Habits author James Clear. And so let's get into it. The first, what is a habit loop? So the habit loop consists of 4 parts: a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. So the cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving and ultimately becomes associated with the cue. So this loop is the basis for building and breaking habits. So using this, we can transform these 4 steps into a framework that we can use to create new habits or get rid of bad ones. So this is referred as the 4 laws of behavior change. So the 4 laws of behavior change. First, we'll start with how to create a good habit. So these are the 4 laws. We got the first law, which is the cue, and that's make it obvious. And number 2 is the craving, that's make it attractive. And number 3, that's the response, and that's make it easy. And number 4 is a reward, that's make it satisfying. And so we'll go over how we put this in action, and we'll go through them one by one so it makes more sense. And so the first one is make it obvious. So most habits run on autopilot, and most of the time we don't even notice them. The step this step is about shining a light on those invisible patterns and creating clear cues for the habits we actually want. So here are 4 different ways that we can make the habit obvious. So number 1 is write down your current habits and become aware of them. So don't worry if they're good or bad habits, just start writing them down either digitally or maybe on paper, whatever's easier for you. And so the reason you want to write this down is because you need to have awareness before you can end up changing anything. So when you see your habits written out, you can start to pick up on cues that trigger the habit. So for example, every time you make a coffee, maybe you scroll on social media or something like that. So that's a cue response pattern. And then once you see those patterns, you can start to reshape them. So that brings us to number 2 here, which is use implementation intentions. So once you know what your current habits, the next step is to make the new ones obvious by deciding exactly when and where you'll do them. And it's a super simple formula. So it goes something like this: I will behavior at time in location. So for example, I will stretch for 2 minutes at 7 a.m. in the living room. So I will stretch is the behavior, for 2 minutes at 7 a.m. That's the time in location, which is the living room in this example. So the cue here is the 7 a.m. in the living room. That's the signal to start stretching. So instead of relying on motivation, you're relying on a clear trigger. Next one here is use habit stacking. So habit stacking is a tool you can use to piggyback on existing habits by linking the new habit directly into something that you already do automatically. And so the tip before you start using this is when you begin a new habit, make it so small that it's almost impossible to skip. So in the beginning, the goal isn't to master the habit, it's just to master the habit of showing up. So the formula for this is super simple again. So after current habit, I will new habit. So after I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth. So flossing 1 tooth only takes seconds, but it gets you into action. So once you start, you'll usually just end up flossing all your teeth anyways. So because the old habit is already routine, it becomes a clear trigger for the new one here. So the next one is design your environment. So your surroundings shape your behavior far more than motivation does. The cues for the habit, if the cues for the habit are visible, the habit becomes much easier to start. So for example, if you want to work out in the morning or something like that, you want to set out your workout clothes where you'll see them as soon as you get up. Or maybe you want to drink more water throughout the day. Then keeping a full water bottle on your desk while you're working will be a good idea there. And so the easier it is to see the cue, the more obvious the habit becomes and the less you need to rely on willpower alone. So now that you have made the habit obvious, the next law is law number 2, which is make it attractive. So if the habit feels good or exciting, you want to do it more. And these tools that I'm going to share with you here will help create desire. And so you're not just relying on discipline. The first one is temptation bundling. And so here you're going to want to pair a behavior that you want with one you need. So this will give you something to look forward to, which does boost motivation. The brain is wired to crave reward. If something you need to do is linked to something pleasurable, then the want ends up pulling the need along. So, for example, you could say, I will only listen to my favorite podcast while jogging. So the want here is listening to the podcast, and the need is actually going for the jog. Another example would be I'll only watch Netflix while I'm on the treadmill. So the want is the Netflix. The need is walking or running on the treadmill. So the podcast or show is your reward that's built in. And you want to make sure the want activity doesn't become the distraction. The goal here is that the pleasurable thing follows or accompanies the behavior need, or the need behavior, not that you just end up skipping the habit because the want overshadows the need. So the next one here is join a culture where the behavior is normal. And so you want to surround yourself with a group where the habits that you want are just common. As humans, we imitate those that are close to us. So being part of a culture where the habits are just normal makes it more attractive. So an example would be if you want to read more, then maybe you'll join a book club. Another one would be if you want to start running more, then joining a running group would be a good idea here. So when everyone around you does the habit that you're looking to form, it feels natural instead of forced. So you want to choose a group where you already feel some sort of connection, shared interest, values, lifestyle, that kind of thing. So if you're a casual runner, a local running group would feel supportive, but maybe training with elite athletes might feel a little bit intimidating. The group should feel like your people. Otherwise, the social pressure can push you away instead of pulling you in. And so that brings us to number 3. And so you'll create a motivational ritual. And so do something that you enjoy right before a habit that feels tough. This builds a positive association and creates anticipation. Anticipation activates reward signals like dopamine. When you do something you enjoy doing first, your brain gets primed, which makes the next habit easier to start. And so an example here would be if you're trying to build a writing habit, you might decide that maybe you'll start with a cup of your favorite tea or maybe even listen to your favorite song. That ritual ends up telling your brain that it's time to get to work on the habit that you've chosen, the specific habit that you've chosen there. So you want to keep the ritual short and reliable, because if you make it too long or complicated, then it might end up being an obstruction instead of a boost. And so those were 3 ways to make a habit more attractive. So that's the temptation building, which adds the reward. It's just built in. And culture gives you a sense of belonging and social connection. And then number 3, motivation rituals, which builds a signal that you'll want to follow. So use one or more of these to turn habits from obligations into something to look forward to. Number 3, make it easy. And so we often think habits fail because of motivation, but most of the time they fail because they're just too difficult to start. So the easier a habit is to begin, the more likely you are to repeat it. So I'm going to go over 5 different ways that you can make your habit easier. So the first one here is reduce friction. So friction is just anything that adds steps between you and your habit. The more steps, the less likely that you are going to be to follow through. So to make habits stick, you want to reduce the friction. So for example, here, if you want to go for a run, you want to keep your shoes by the door and keep your running clothes out and visible, because then each step you remove makes it easier to get started. The next one is prime your environment. So priming your environment means setting it up so that the habit is the default choice. An example for this would be if you want to practice the guitar, you want to leave it out on the stand instead of just storing it away in the case. Another example would be is if you want to drink more water, you want to keep the water bottle filled on your desk right in front of you. So a primed environment nudges you in the right direction without added effort. And the third one here would be master the decisive moment. So most habits are shaped in the small decision points. The decisive moment is the choice that sets the direction for everything after it. So, for example, the choice to put your running shoes on often determines whether you go for the run. So, you want to master the decisive moment and you'll end up mastering the habit. Number four, you want to use the 2-minute rule. So, when starting a new habit, you want to scale it down to something that takes only 2 minutes or less. The goal is to make it so it's so simple that you don't skip it. So, an example here would be instead of saying, like, I'm going to go read for 30 minutes every night, maybe you'll start with, I'll read one page, because once you've started, it's easier to keep going. But the priority, if you haven't noticed by now, is building the routine of showing up. So, number five will be automate where possible. So, whenever possible, you want to take the willpower out of the equation by automating your habits. This means using technology or a one-time choice that makes the habit happen with less effort. So, for example, maybe setting up automatic transfers to your savings account. If you're looking to save more money, might be something good to implement. Another one would be if you're trying to eat healthy, then maybe you can use some sort of subscription service or something like that to be able to deliver healthy food right to your door. That might be an option there. And so another one would be you can install apps that block distracting websites during work hours so you're able to better focus on the work. Automation locks in the behavior so you don't have to think about it every single time. And so that's the third law, make it easy. So you want to reduce friction, prime your environment, and focus on the decisive moment. Shrink small habits to 2 minutes or less and automate it where you can. The simpler the habit, the more likely it becomes to be part of your life. So that moves us to the fourth law, which is make it satisfying. So if the habit feels rewarding, you'll want to repeat it. And without satisfaction, habits don't stick. So here are 4 ways that you can make your habits more satisfying. So number one is reinforce with rewards. Give yourself an immediate reward after you complete a habit. Our brains are wired for instant gratification. And then if you feel good right away, you end up wanting to repeat the habit. Some examples for this would be after a workout. If you enjoy maybe a smoothie or something, then you'll have that right after the workout. Or maybe after finishing a study session or something like that, you'll check it off on some sort of tracking app or maybe a calendar or something like that. The key is to choose rewards that reinforce the habit instead of undoing it. So if your goal is to eat healthy, you don't want to reward yourself with junk food or something like that. That's just counterintuitive. So the next one here is make doing nothing enjoyable. So when avoiding a bad habit, you can feel like you're missing out. So to stay satisfied, you need to be able to see the benefits of not acting. So if you're trying to quit impulse shopping, for example, track the money that you didn't spend and then watch your savings grow. Or maybe you want to reduce screen time. Then what you want to do is note down how many hours you were able to gain for doing other activities that you actually do enjoy, like maybe reading or spending time with family, things that are more important to you. And by making these invisible benefits visible, it ends up making the process more satisfying. So another one here is use a habit tracker. So habit trackers give you visual proof of progress. So marking off a calendar or using an app creates a little burst of satisfaction so you can see the streak grow. If you're building a daily meditation habit, for example, maybe you'll check off each day on the calendar because the growing chain ends up becoming its own motivation and you don't want to break it. The next one here is never miss twice. So everyone slips up, but the key here isn't perfection, it's just recovery. So when you miss once, don't let it become a new pattern. Get back on track as soon as you can. If you skip a workout, say Tuesday, then make sure that you get your ass back in the gym or out for that run on the Wednesday. If you fall off your diet, you want to jump back to it right away tomorrow. Missing once is a mistake, but missing twice, that's the start of a new habit. And so the fourth law, make it satisfying. Let's go back over that. So reinforce habits with small rewards. Find ways to make doing nothing enjoyable. Track your progress visually, and never miss twice. If it feels rewarding in the short term, you'll naturally want to repeat it long enough for it to stick and actually become a habit. So now let's talk about breaking bad habits. And so basically, these are just the inversion of building good habits. So the first one here is make it invisible. The next one is make it unattractive. The third one is make it difficult. And then the fourth one is make it unsatisfying. So number one, make it invisible. The first step to breaking the bad habit is to make it invisible. So habits are driven by cues in the environment, as we've gone over before. And if the cue isn't there, then the habit is much less likely to happen. So you want to do this by reducing exposure. Bad habits don't just appear out of nowhere. They're triggered by something that you see, hear, or feel. The more you're exposed to the cue, the harder it is to resist. The solution is to reduce exposure and remove cues from your environment. So examples, if you're trying to eat less junk food, just don't keep it in the house, or at least get it out of sight, because out of sight, it's out of mind. Another one is if you're trying to cut down on social media, you'll want to delete the apps from your phone and maybe keep your phone in another room while you're working. That brings us to the inversion of law number two, which is make it unattractive. And so you're going to want to reframe your mindset here. Most of the time, we fall into bad habits because we focus on the short-term pleasure that they bring. To weaken their pull, you need to reframe your perception of them. So instead of looking at what you're missing out on, highlight the benefit of avoiding the habit. This changes the way that your brain interprets the behavior. It no longer feels rewarding, it feels costly. So examples here would be if you're cutting back on, say, smoking, you want to remind yourself of the money that you save, maybe the lung capacity that you regain, and then the years that you're adding to your life. Another one here is if you're reducing late night scrolling, think about how much better you'll sleep and how much more energy you'll have the next day because you've been able to get better rest because you're not up all night scrolling. And so another one, if you're avoiding junk food, just focus on how good it feels to have steady energy instead of crashes. And when you highlight the benefits of avoiding the habit, you change the story that you tell yourself. So the habit loses its attraction because you see it for what it really costs you. Number three, so that's make it difficult. And so bad habits stick because they're easy and convenient. If you add friction and barriers, the habit becomes harder to follow through on. So increasing the friction is just the number of steps between you and the habit. And so by adding extra steps, you make the behavior less automatic. So examples here would be if you want to watch less TV, maybe you'll unplug it after each use and put a remote in a different room. Another one would be if you want to cut down on social media, you'll log out of all the apps every single time, so that you have to put in the password if you want to log back into them. Another one would be if you're trying to snack less, keep treats out of the house, or at least bare minimum have them out of sight. The harder it is to start a habit, the less often it is that you'll do it. Another one for make it difficult is use commitment devices. So a commitment device is a choice that you'll make now that restricts your options later. So it locks you into good behavior by removing the easy path to a bad habit. So examples here would be um, if you want to limit junk food, just don't buy it in the store, or at least because if you don't have it, then you're not going to be able to eat it, right? So um, another one would be if you want to cut back on gaming or streaming or something like that, you can set parental controls that limit the time spent on your device. Commitment devices work because they design the future in your favor, making the bad habit harder and the better habit the default. So that's how you make a bad habit difficult. You add friction and you can use a commitment device. So if the bad habits no longer feel convenient, you'll be far less likely to fall back into it. And so number four, make it satisfying or make it unsatisfying. Habits stick when they feel rewarding. If you make a bad habit feel costly or embarrassing, you end up less likely to repeat it. So accountability partners, this is just someone that watches your behavior and can call you out when you slip. Social pressure makes a habit less satisfying because it's no longer just private, it's visible to others. And so examples for this would be um, is telling a friend or that you'll message them after each workout. And then if you don't, that's something that they'll notice and they can call you out on it. Or agree to check in daily with someone who's also breaking the same bad habit. When others are watching, the cost of failure goes up. Um, and so another one here would be create a habit contract. So a habit contract takes accountability even further. It's a written agreement that makes the cost of your bad habit public and painful. So basically you'll just state the habit that you're trying to change and then what you'll do instead and then the penalty if you fail. So examples would be maybe you agree to a friend that if you miss a gym session, you'll owe them $20. Or another one could be if you smoke a cigarette, you have to donate to a cause that you don't support. The contract makes the habit unsatisfying because the consequences are immediate and they're clear. But if you're ready to start building habits that actually last and you need some extra help, what you can do is you can book a free strategy call with me. So on this call, we'll look at habits that are currently holding you back from living a healthy life and outline a simple plan to help you regain steady energy, drop the extra weight, and help you feel in control of your health. So if you think that would help, click the link in the description to book a call with me. Otherwise, leave a comment and let me know if you thought this was helpful or even share this with someone who you think might need it. But that's all I have for you on this one. So you have yourself a good one and I'll see you on the next one.